The night he walked out of my life, I didn't even know it was happening. I was asleep, exhausted from working a double shift, feet sore, back aching. I had worked 14 hours that day, not for me, but for us. For our future. For the life I thought we were building together. And while I slept, he took everything. He cleaned out the bank account we shared. He packed his bags. He took the car that I had helped him pay for. He even took the dog I had rescued, nursed back to health, loved like my own child. He took everything, and he left me with nothing but a note on the kitchen counter that said, and I quote, "I'm sorry. I needed a fresh start at my expense." But here's what he didn't know. Here's what nobody tells you when you're lying on that cold floor, sobbing at 3 a.m., wondering how you're going to survive. God was already writing the next chapter, and trust me, you need to hear how this story ends. Let me take you back. Because to understand the miracle, you have to understand the mess. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I was just like millions of people watching this right now. I was someone who believed in love. Someone who gave everything to a relationship. Someone who thought that if you were loyal, if you were faithful, if you worked hard and stood by your person through the hard times, that loyalty would come back to you. I was wrong. But I didn't know that yet. I met him when I was 24 years old. He was charming. He was funny. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. And I fell hard. Fast, the way you fall when you've been a little lonely and someone finally makes you feel seen. Within 6 months, we were living together. Within a year, we had a joint bank account. Within 2 years, I had co-signed on a car loan with him. Within 3 years, I had quietly let go of dreams I had for myself, a business I wanted to start, a city I had always wanted to move to, friendships I had let fade because he didn't like my friends. I gave up pieces of myself so slowly, so quietly, that I didn't even realize I was disappearing. That's what toxic love does to you. It doesn't take everything at once. It takes a little here, a little there, until one day you look in the mirror and you barely recognize yourself. But I was committed. I was loyal. I kept telling myself, we're just going through a rough patch. Every couple has rough patches. Real love is about staying when things get hard, and so I stayed. I stayed when he lost his job and I paid every single bill for 8 months. I stayed when he forgot my birthday 2 years in a row. I stayed when he embarrassed me in front of my family at Thanksgiving and then told me I was too sensitive. I stayed when I found messages on his phone that made my stomach drop. Messages that he had a perfectly smooth explanation for, and I, desperate to believe him, accepted every word. I stayed because I loved him.
Or at least, I loved who I thought he was. Looking back now, I understand something I didn't understand then. I wasn't in love with him. I was in love with the potential of him. I was in love with the version of him that existed on our best days. The laughing, the inside jokes, the feeling of his hand in mine. But that version was never the full picture. The full picture was someone who saw my loyalty as a resource to be used, and I was about to find that out the hard way. It was a Tuesday. I remember that specifically. A Tuesday in November. One of those gray, cold evenings when the sky looks heavy and the wind has teeth. I had worked an opening shift and a closing shift back-to-back because my coworker had called out sick. I was running on caffeine and sheer willpower. I came home at almost midnight. The apartment was quiet. The lights were off. I figured he was asleep. I remember thinking, I won't wake him. I'll just shower and go to bed. I was so tired I could barely think straight. I ate a granola bar standing at the kitchen counter. I didn't notice that some things were missing. I was too exhausted to notice. I showered. I crawled into bed. And I was asleep within minutes. I slept through everything. I slept through him loading bags into the car. I slept through him going back and forth, quietly, methodically, like a man who had been planning this for weeks. Maybe months. I slept through the front door closing for the last time, and when I woke up at 7 a.m. the next morning, the first thing I noticed was that the other side of the bed was cold. Not just empty, cold. Like no one had slept there at all. And then I saw it, a folded piece of paper on the kitchen counter. My name written on the outside in his handwriting. I opened it. "I'm sorry. I needed a fresh start. Please don't try to contact me. I wish you well." That was it. No explanation, no conversation, no warning. Just, "I needed a fresh start." I stood in that kitchen in my pajamas, holding that note, and for a long moment I didn't feel anything. My brain simply refused to process it, and then I walked to the bedroom and I noticed his side of the closet was empty. I walked to the bathroom, his toiletries gone. I grabbed my phone to call him, blocked. I opened my banking app, our joint account, which had $2,847 in it. The money I had just been paid 2 days ago was down to $4.12. He had taken $2,843. He had left me $4.12. I sat down on the kitchen floor and I cried. Not the pretty kind of crying you see in movies. The ugly kind. The kind that comes from somewhere so deep inside you that it almost doesn't feel like sadness. It feels like something breaking. Like a bone snapping, like something that can't be unbroken. I cried until I had nothing left, and then I sat in the silence of that apartment and I thought, what do I do now? I had $4.12 in my bank account. Rent was due in 11 days. I had no car. He had taken it, even though my name was also on that loan, which meant I was still responsible for payments on a car I no longer had. My dog was gone, my partner of 3 years was gone, and I was sitting on the cold kitchen floor alone at 7 a.m. with a granola bar wrapper next to me and a note that said I needed a fresh start. I want you to understand something. That moment, that specific moment on that cold kitchen floor, that was the lowest point of my entire life, lower than any failure, lower than any rejection, lower than anything I had ever experienced before. I felt completely and utterly alone. But here is what I know now that I didn't know then. Sometimes the floor is exactly where God needs you to be, because it's the only place where the only direction left is up. I am not someone who talks about faith casually. I grew up in a household where we went to church on Sundays and said grace before dinner. But I'll be honest with you, faith was more of a habit than a heartbeat for me. I knew the words, I had heard the stories. But I had never truly been tested until that morning, sitting on that kitchen floor with $4.12 and a broken heart. I did something I hadn't done sincerely in years. I prayed. Not a polished, words in the right order prayer. Not the kind you say in front of other people. I mean, I got raw. I got honest. I put my forehead against that cold linoleum floor and I said, out loud, in that empty apartment, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get up from this. I don't understand why this happened. But if you're there, I need you. I need something. I need to know I'm not alone in this. I don't know what I expected. Probably nothing. I wasn't sure anything was listening, but something shifted, not in the apartment. Not anything dramatic. But something shifted inside me. Like a door, cracked open just a fraction. Enough to let a sliver of light through, and the thought that came to me, quiet, almost like a whisper, was this: you survived everything that was supposed to destroy you before. You will survive this too. That was it. It wasn't a booming voice. It wasn't a miracle. It was just a quiet, steady truth that settled somewhere in my chest and refused to leave. You will survive this too. I got up off that floor. I washed my face. I made a list. I called my best friend, the friend I had let drift because he never liked her, and I told her everything, and she drove 45 minutes to sit with me that morning without asking a single question. She just showed up. She brought coffee and bagels and she sat across from me at that kitchen table and she listened to every word. When I finished, she looked at me and she said something I will never forget as long as I live. He didn't leave you with nothing. He left you with yourself. And baby, you are everything. I didn't believe her that day, but I wrote it down. And some days, That sentence was the only thing that got me out of bed. I want to talk to everyone watching this who is in that place right now, that floor place, that 4 a.m. place, that I don't know how to survive this place. I see you. What happened to you was not fair. What was taken from you, whether it was money, or time, or trust, or love, or your sense of self, that was not okay. You did not deserve it, but here is what I need you to hear. The person who left you, left you. And the only direction that matters now is forward. Not because it's easy. Not because the pain isn't real. But because you specifically, were built to overcome this. How do I know? Because you're still here. You're still breathing. You're still watching this. That's not weakness. That's survival. And survival is the beginning of everything. Let me tell you what the next 6 months look like. Because I want to be honest with you. This is not one of those stories where I wake up the next morning and everything is magically better. This was hard, grinding, exhausting, lonely, often discouraging hard, but it was also transformative in ways I couldn't have imagined. Month 1. My best friend helped me figure out my finances. We sat down with every bill, every account, every debt. The picture was not pretty. He had drained the joint account. I was still on the hook for the car loan, $387 a month for a car I didn't have. My rent was $1,100. My income, working at a job I had never really committed to because I kept thinking he and I would figure out a better plan, was barely enough. I filed a police report for the stolen money. I was told it was a complicated situation because it was a joint account and technically both parties had access. The officer I spoke to was kind. He told me the honest truth. Pursuing it legally would cost more than it was worth financially, but that I should document everything. I documented everything. I also called the car lender and explained the situation. That conversation changed something for me, because the woman on the phone was so human about it. She helped me understand my options. She didn't treat me like a number. She treated me like a person who had been wronged and needed help navigating an impossible situation. I learned something that month. Asking for help is not weakness. Pretending you don't need it is. I had spent 3 years not asking for help, not from friends, not from family, because he had made me feel like our problems were private, like bringing them to other people was a betrayal of us. That isolation was by design. I understand that now. Isolation is how control works. Month 2. I started therapy. I know that word makes some people uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable. I had never talked to a therapist before. I had been raised with the idea that you handle your own problems, that talking to a stranger about your feelings was either self-indulgent or a sign of weakness. I walked into that first session like a person waiting for a dentist. Tense. Guarded. My therapist, and I say this with the deepest possible gratitude, was extraordinary. She didn't fix me. That's not what therapy does. What she did was help me see things I had been too close to see. She helped me understand the patterns, why I had ignored the red flags, why I had prioritized his comfort over my own well-being, why I had let my self-worth become so tangled up in whether he approved of me. She helped me understand something called trauma bonding, the way prolonged exposure to cycles of pain and reward can create an attachment that looks like love but is actually something much more complicated and much more damaging. Understanding it didn't erase the pain, but it took away the shame, because the shame had been crushing me. The voice that kept asking, "How did you not see this? How did you let this happen? What is wrong with you?" Therapy helped me answer those questions honestly, without cruelty. The answer was not that something was wrong with me. The answer was that I had been in a situation designed to obscure the truth, and I had responded to it the way most human beings would, with hope, with loyalty, with the belief that love could fix what was broken. That's not a character flaw. That's humanity. Month 3. I made a decision that scared me more than almost anything I had done before. I applied for a position I felt completely unqualified for. There was a company in my city that I had always admired from a distance. A small but growing business in an industry I was genuinely passionate about. They had posted a job listing that was, on paper, above my experience level. Every rational voice in my head said, "Don't bother. You won't get it. You're not ready." But there was another voice. Quieter. The same one that had spoken to me on that kitchen floor. Apply anyway? So I applied. I spent an entire weekend on that application. I rewrote my cover letter 11 times. I researched the company until I could speak about their mission and values as naturally as if I had worked there for years. I asked my best friend to review everything. I practiced potential interview questions out loud in my car, and I got the interview, and then I got the job. The salary was not life-changing, not immediately. But it was more than I had been making. And more than the money, it was the beginning of understanding what I was actually capable of when I was investing in myself instead of someone else. Month 4? I moved apartments. I could no longer afford the place we had shared, and honestly, I did not want to stay there. Every corner of it held a memory I was not ready to face. I found a smaller place. Simpler, a one-bedroom across town, on the 3rd floor, with a window that caught the afternoon light beautifully. I remember the day I moved in. I had 1 carload of stuff. I had gotten rid of so much, intentionally. Some of it was his. Some of it was stuff we had chosen together and that I no longer wanted the reminder of. I sold some things, donated others, threw away the rest. I walked into that empty apartment with 3 boxes and a suitcase and a plant my therapist had given me as a housewarming gift. She said, "This plant is going to grow the way you're going to grow. It just needs light and a little time." I put the plant on the windowsill. I sat on the floor, no furniture yet, just the floor, and I looked around at the bare walls and the empty space, and instead of feeling sad about what was missing, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Free? Not happy. Not fixed. But free. Free to decide what went on these walls. Free to choose who came through this door. Free to be loud or quiet, messy or organized, entirely according to my own preferences. Free to be me. For the first time in 3 years, I was not adjusting myself to fit someone else's comfort. I ordered a pizza. I ate it sitting on the floor. I watched a show he had always said was stupid, and I laughed out loud, alone, in my empty apartment, and it was one of the best nights I'd had in years. Months 5 and 6. These months I call the becoming months, because something was happening. Something I don't have a fully scientific explanation for. Call it healing. Call it growth. Call it God working in the background of my life while I wasn't paying attention. Things started to line up. A project I led at the new job got recognized by leadership, and I was offered more responsibility and a small raise. I reconnected with family members I had drifted from. My cousin, who I had been close to growing up, reached out completely out of nowhere. She had no idea what I had been through, just to say she missed me. We talked for 3 hours. I started running. Not because anyone told me to. Just because one evening I had energy I didn't know what to do with, and I put on my sneakers and I ran around the block, and then the next block, and then I just kept going. And I picked up a journal. I had never been a journaling person, but my therapist had suggested it, and I finally tried it, and something about putting words on a page, seeing my thoughts outside my own head, was genuinely healing in a way I had not expected. I wrote down the bad days. I wrote down the good moments, even small ones. A good cup of coffee, a song that hit right, a stranger who held the door open and smiled. I wrote about what I was learning about myself. I wrote letters to the version of me who had been asleep on that kitchen floor and didn't know what was coming. I told her, "Hold on. It gets so much better than you can imagine right now. Now, I know what some of you are waiting for. You want to know what happened to him, and I'm going to tell you. Because it matters to this story, not because I take pleasure in it, and I want to be clear about that, because I've had to do a lot of work to get to a place where I genuinely mean that, but because what happened to him is a testament to something I believe with my whole heart. You cannot build something real on a foundation of someone else's pain. About 4 months after he left, I heard from a mutual acquaintance. He had used the money he took from me to move to another city. He had moved in with a woman he had apparently been talking to for months before he left, which, yeah, I was not surprised. The timeline made too much sense. For a little while, by all appearances, it seemed like he had gotten exactly what he wanted. New city, new life, fresh start, just like the note said. But here's what happens when you run from accountability instead of facing it. The problems come with you, the patterns that made him who he was, the taking, the dishonesty, the avoidance of anything difficult. Those didn't stay behind in our old apartment. He brought them with him. Because that's how character works. Within 3 months of moving, he had lost the new job he'd taken, reportedly for dishonesty with his employer, the woman he had moved for. The relationship fell apart inside of 6 months. I was told she had found out about the money he had taken from me and several other things that had come to light, and she ended it. He ended up back in the same city he had fled, living with a family member, starting over in a way that had nothing of the triumphant fresh start energy he had clearly imagined. The car, which was still in both their names, he had let the payments lapse. My credit took a hit before I caught it and worked with the lender to resolve it. But he lost the car entirely. He lost everything he had taken from me. Everything? Not because I wished it on him, not because I engineered it, but because, and I say this with complete sincerity, that is the nature of things built on wrong foundations. I found out about most of this through that mutual acquaintance over coffee one afternoon, about 8 months after that November morning. And here's what I remember about how I felt. Not triumphant, not vindicated, not even particularly satisfied. I felt sad. Not for me. For what he could have been. For the version of him that could have chosen honesty and done the work and been someone worthy of the loyalty I had given him. I was sad for that lost possibility, but I also felt something else. I felt clear. Because every doubt I'd had, every maybe I was too hard on him and maybe I misread the situation and maybe I wasn't a good enough partner, all of that dissolved. I had done nothing wrong. I had loved well, and the outcome was never mine to control. It was his. He made choices. Choices have consequences. That is not punishment, that is simply the universe maintaining its integrity. I don't believe in celebrating another person's downfall. Even someone who hurt you. Because that energy, that I hope you suffer energy, it keeps you tied to the person you're trying to move on from. It keeps you looking backward, and where your eyes go, your life goes. So I said a quiet prayer, genuinely, that he would figure it out. That whatever had made him capable of doing what he did, he would get the help he needed to become better. I said it and I meant it, and then I turned back toward my own life, because that's where everything good was happening. I want to tell you about my life now, not to brag. Not to do one of those look how great I'm doing montages that social media is full of. But because I think you need to see what is genuinely possible when you stop surviving and start building. It has been a little over 2 years since that November morning. I am not the same person who sat on that kitchen floor. At work, I have been promoted twice. The company I was terrified to apply for has become a place I genuinely love, a place where I feel valued and where I have grown in ways I didn't know were possible. I am managing a small team now. I am trusted with decisions that matter. I walk into that building every morning and I feel something I never felt at my old job. Purpose. My finances. I rebuilt them from $4.12 to a savings account I am genuinely proud of. It wasn't fast. It wasn't easy. There were months of rice and beans and saying no to things I wanted because I was being disciplined about the future. But those months taught me a relationship with money that I will have for the rest of my life, not scarcity, but intentionality. I know where every dollar goes. I have an emergency fund. I am no longer one bad week away from crisis. My apartment, the little one-bedroom with the afternoon light, I have made it into a home. Every piece of furniture chosen by me, for me. Art on the walls that I love, a kitchen where I actually cook now, something I had stopped doing because he was always critical of my cooking. Turns out, I'm a really good cook. My friendships, I have rebuilt them, and more. The friends he had edged me away from are back in my life, and those relationships are deeper now for the time apart. I have also made new friends at the new job. Through running, I now run 5Ks, which is a sentence I never thought I would say about myself. Through a community I found that fills my soul in ways I had stopped believing were available to me. My dog? I need to tell you about my dog. He took my dog. My sweet, rescued, goofy, perfect dog. And I grieved that loss almost as deeply as I grieved everything else. About 6 months after he left, I was told through the same mutual acquaintance that he could no longer keep the dog. He was living in a situation that didn't allow pets, and he reached out, through a third party. He did not contact me directly, to ask if I wanted her back. I said yes before the sentence was finished. She came home on a Sunday afternoon. She walked in like she owned the place, which she did, sniffed every corner, then came and sat directly on my feet. Like, okay, we're back, everything is fine, what's for dinner? I sat on the floor with her in my lap and I cried, but this time, different tears, gratitude tears, because she was home. I was home. And home had never felt so fully, completely mine. And then there's one more thing I want to tell you about. This one is personal, and I share it carefully, because I know how tender this subject can be. I did not set out to fall in love again. That was the furthest thing from my mind. I had decided, firmly, deliberately, that I was going to spend real time being single. Getting to know myself. Rebuilding, not filling the empty space with a new person just to avoid sitting with myself, and I kept that commitment. For over a year, but then, organically, unexpectedly, at a moment when I was so settled in my own life that I wasn't looking for anything, someone came into my life, a genuinely good person. Patient. Honest. Someone who communicates, someone who, the first time I had a hard conversation with them, the kind of hard conversation I had always avoided in my previous relationship because it inevitably led to conflict, responded with curiosity instead of defensiveness. They wanted to understand. I remember driving home after that conversation and thinking, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Not perfect. Not fairy tale. But real. Honest. Built on something solid. I am not going to tell you that person is the reason my life is good now. They're not. My life was already good. I had already done the work. I had already rebuilt. They are a beautiful addition to a life I had already made whole, and that is, I think, exactly how it should be. I'm talking directly to you now, you specifically, the person who clicked on this video. Maybe you clicked because the title felt familiar. Maybe it felt a little too familiar. Maybe you're living your own version of that November morning right now. Maybe you're still in it, in the relationship, trying to decide whether to stay or go, feeling confused and alone. Maybe it already happened to you and you're in that early, raw place of grief and shock. Maybe it happened a while ago and you're in the messy middle of trying to figure out who you are now. Wherever you are, I want to say some things. First, what happened to you is not a reflection of your worth. I know that sounds simple. I know you've probably heard it before. But I need you to really let it land. The fact that someone chose to betray you, use you, leave you, that is a reflection of their character. Not yours. A diamond does not become less valuable because someone dropped it. It is still a diamond. You are still a diamond. Second, stop waiting for an apology that may never come. This one is hard. I know. Because we feel like we can't fully heal until the person who hurt us admits what they did. Until they say I was wrong. I'm sorry. You deserved better. We keep that door open, just a crack, waiting. Close the door. Close it not for them, close it for you. The healing you need is not on the other side of their apology. It is on the other side of your own decision to move forward. Their remorse, or lack of it, does not determine your future. You do. Third, you are not starting over. You are starting from experience. Starting over sounds like you've lost everything and are back at zero. But that's not what's happening. You are taking everything you've learned, all the hard-won wisdom, all the clarity, all the self-knowledge you've gained through this fire, and you are beginning again, but better equipped. That's not starting over. That is a strategic relaunch. Fourth, the silence is part of the healing. I know the silence feels unbearable sometimes. Especially at night, especially when the apartment is empty and there's no one to talk to and your phone isn't lighting up and the life you used to have, even the unhealthy version of it, feels loud in its absence. Sit in the silence anyway. The silence is where you will find yourself again. It is in the quiet, the uncomfortable, unglamorous, nobody watching quiet, that you will begin to hear your own voice clearly for the first time. Your preferences, your dreams, your instincts that were drowned out by someone else's noise for so long. The silence is not emptiness. The silence is space being made for what comes next. Fifth, let people in. I know you're scared. I know the last time you fully trusted someone, it cost you dearly. I know the impulse to build walls, to keep a safe distance, to never give anyone access to the parts of you that can be hurt. I understand it, but I promise you, isolation is not safety. Isolation is a different kind of prison. The people who are meant for you, the real ones, the steady ones, the ones who show up with coffee at 7 a.m. when you're falling apart, they cannot get to you if you never let anyone through the door. Let people in. Carefully. Slowly. But let them in. Sixth, God, or the universe, or whatever you believe in, is not done with your story. That November morning felt like the end of everything. It was the beginning of everything, not in a cheesy way. Not in everything happens for a reason way that dismisses real pain. I don't believe pain needs to be justified. I don't believe you had to go through that in order to deserve good things, but I do believe that when you are placed in the crucible, when the heat is turned all the way up and you feel like you're going to fall apart completely, something is being refined. Something true is being revealed, something that was hidden in you, strength you didn't know was there, gifts you hadn't developed, clarity you couldn't have reached any other way, is being brought to the surface. What was done to you was wrong, and it is also, somehow, inexplicably, the thing that set you free. He took everything while you slept, and God made sure he woke up with nothing. But more importantly, he made sure you woke up with everything. Before I let you go, I want to ask you something. Is there someone in your life who needs to hear this story today? Someone who is on that kitchen floor right now, literally or figuratively, who needs to know that there is a way through. Share this video with them, not with a long message, not with an explanation. Just send it and say, "This made me think of you." Watch it. That one act could be the thing that cracks a door open for someone who desperately needs a sliver of light. And if you are that person, if you are the one on the floor, leave me a comment. Tell me where you are. I read them. I cannot promise I'll respond to everyone, but I promise I see you. You are not alone. You never were. And the best part of your story? It hasn't been written yet. Go write it.